All right, get ready to flex those brain muscles because today we are diving deep into the world of language acquisition.
Ooh, I like that. Flex those brain muscles.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to be looking at how we develop this incredible communication system, the differences between like picking up our first language and then trying to master a new one later in life,
Right.
and what actually works when it comes to language learning. So,
Yeah, because we can definitely try a bunch of things.
yes,
And, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't.
totally. And it's funny, right? Because we use language every day.
Every day. Yeah,
We kind of take it for granted.
we do. It's fascinating how we do that. Like, we don't even think about the complex processes that are happening
Behind the scenes.
behind the scenes to allow us to do this. So
It is pretty amazing.
it is.
Have you ever, like, I don't know, tried to explain something complicated,
Like,
but
no,
you were only allowed to use, like, animal sounds?
I can't say that I have. I can't say that that's something I've tried.
It's tricky, right? And our sources point out that it's that symbolic nature of human language that really sets it apart. That's what gives us this power to communicate these abstract ideas, our emotions,
Right.
build civilizations,
Yeah.
not just meows and barks.
Exactly.
Right.
And what's interesting about that is that symbolic ability is rooted in this thing researchers call the language acquisition device.
Oh, I've heard about this.
Yes. Is this like,
So it's this idea that our brains are practically hardwired for language from the get-go.
Go.
Like ready to absorb all that grammar, all that vocabulary. We're born ready.
we're born ready?
Wow.
Kind of like, you think of a seed.
Okay.
It has all the potential to become this beautiful plant,
Mm.
but it needs the right environment.
Oh,
It
interesting.
needs the right nourishment. And that's where things get really interesting because we can compare how children,
Yeah.
adults learn languages. They're very, very different.
Okay, let's unpack that because this is something I know a lot of us have experienced, like
Yes.
as an adult.
Why is it so different?
It feels so different. And sometimes it's just like,
It's harder.
it's so frustrating.
It is because, when you think about children, they are immersed in language. Their whole world revolves around understanding and being understood.
Right. It's all new.
They're constantly listening, they're experimenting, they're
Yeah.
receiving feedback.
Yeah, and they're not.
And remember Motherese,
Oh, yes.
that sing-song way we talk to baby.
Oh, 100%. My niece is getting a lot of vowel sounds that don't even exist.
Exactly. And it might sound silly to us, but studies actually show that Motherese plays a crucial role in language development.
Really?
Because those exaggerated tones, that slower pace, the repetition, it helps infants distinguish sound.
Oh, wow.
It helps them grasp the rhythm of language.
Yeah.
They're getting those essential building blocks without even realizing it.
Wow. So much thought goes into those babbles
I know, right?
that we don't even realize.
Exactly.
And our brains are working so hard.
They are.
Even at that age.
From the very beginning.
But then for those of us who aren't surrounded by language 24/7 anymore, right?
Right.
Not babies.
It's-
So how should we as adults be approaching language learning?
Well, and that's what's really interesting is that bombarding someone with all the grammar rules, which is what a lot of like traditional methods do,
Right.
often falls short.
Mhm.
It's like trying to learn basketball by just reading the rule book.
Okay.
You might know all the rules, but can you play?
Yeah, you can't actually play the game.
You can't play the game. So it's more than just knowing the rules.
Knowing how to use the language in different situations.
Exactly.
This is what they call communicative competence, right?
Yes. Think of it like this. You can know all the rules. You could have memorized that whole rule book.
Right.
But if you freeze up in the middle of the game,
Yeah, exactly.
that's not really going to help you.
Yeah.
So it's about knowing how to react,
Yeah.
how to communicate naturally.
Right. And it highlights why simply being grammatically correct doesn't actually make you a good communicator.
No, not at all. It's about understanding those nuances,
Yeah.
the cultural context,
Right.
the unspoken rules of interaction.
Yeah. Like there's so much more to it.
Exactly.
So how do we get that? How do
Yes.
we as like adults who aren't babies anymore, how
Right.
do we cultivate that?
Yeah. How do we
That's
want to do
that
it
court sense, but for language.
for language? And what's interesting is our sources talk about how, we should be moving away from these traditional
Okay.
rule-heavy methods, right?
Mhm.
We should embrace these more communicative approaches. And one of them that I thought was really interesting was the natural approach.
The natural approach. Yeah. This one came up a lot
Yes.
in the research.
And it's basically this idea of mirroring the natural acquisition process. So instead of drilling grammar,
Right.
it's about creating an environment where you can gradually absorb it
Okay.
more organically.
So kind of like how we were talking about How we learned our first languages, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Surrounded by it, picking it up.
Immersed in it.
Yeah. The natural approach emphasizes this thing called comprehensible input.
Okay, break that down for me.
Yeah. So it basically means exposing yourself to language that you can generally understand,
Okay.
even if you can't produce it all yourself yet.
Oh, okay.
So like a baby listening to you for months.
Right. They're not talking back.
They're absorbing those rhythms and patterns.
Yeah, they're just listening.
And another key aspect of this approach is this emphasis on a silent period.
A silent period.
Yes. So instead of being pressured to speak right away,
Mm.
learners are given time to kind of like build their confidence,
Okay.
to internalize the language
Gotcha.
before they're put on the spot.
That takes the pressure off.
Exactly.
Because I think for a lot of people, myself included,
Yeah.
it's that fear of making the mistake,
Yes.
that fear of like sounding silly, sounding wrong.
Of course.
That can really be a barrier.
It is. But the natural approach recognizes that making mistakes is part of it.
It's part of the process.
It's about creating a safe space to experiment.
So like, what do you think about all those language learning apps?
Oh, interesting.
The ones that are always, throwing new vocabulary at you.
Right, exactly.
Giving you grammar rules. Like, are they helpful?
It's a mixed bag.
Hmm.
I think some apps do a better job than others at creating that, like, immersive environment.
Right.
But, there is potential there,
Yeah.
especially because technology has advanced so much
Yeah, that's really cool.
that we can have these interactive,
Yeah.
personalized learning experiences.
Okay, so say somebody's listening to this
Yeah.
and they're like, I want to try this natural approach.
Yeah.
What advice would you give them?
I would say, first and foremost, find ways to surround yourself with the language
Okay.
as much as possible.
Yeah.
So whether that's listening to music, watching movies,
Got it.
TV shows, finding language exchange partners,
Love that.
anything that allows you to experience it.
And don't be afraid to mess
Don't
up.
be afraid to make mistakes.
Yeah.
They're proof that you're learning.
You're on the right track.
Exactly.
I love that. And it's so true because it's not just about like memorizing vocabulary, right?
Right.
It's deeper than that. You're connecting with the culture,
Yes.
with the people.
Exactly.
of it.
And that ties back to what we were saying earlier, about language being so social.
Right.
It's not just this neutral tool
Yeah.
for communication.
Yeah.
It's so intertwined with our identities,
Right. Like who we
our
are.
values, our worldviews.
Like even just how we greet each other can
Yeah.
be so different.
Exactly.
Depending on where you are in the world, a simple hello
Right.
could involve a handshake,
Bow.
a bow, a kiss
Yeah.
on both cheeks. Like
Yeah.
it's a minefield.
It is. And, those little nuances extend way beyond greetings.
No.
It's everything. How we tell stories, express our emotions, even how we structure our arguments.
It's really interesting, and it makes me wonder
Yeah.
if language is so tied to our culture, like you're saying,
Right.
what happens when cultures change?
Oh, that's interesting.
Does language change along with it?
That's such a good question. And the answer is yes.
It does.
Language is constantly evolving.
Wow.
It's adapting. Just think about how differently we speak now compared to even like a few decades ago,
Right.
let alone like centuries ago.
That's true. I can't imagine trying to explain the internet to someone
Right.
like using Shakespearean English.
Good luck with that.
Right.
You'd have to come up with a whole new vocabulary.
Exactly.
And that's the exciting part, because every generation, every cultural shift, every technological advancement,
yeah.
they all leave their mark on language.
So we're all influencing it.
We are. It's not just, the linguists,
Right.
the academics.
It's everyone.
It's all of us having these conversations
All right.
and influencing how language evolves every time we communicate.
That's amazing.
It's pretty cool, right?
It really is. So as we're wrapping up this deep dive
Yeah.
on language acquisition,
What's one key takeaway?
yeah, what are people walking away with today?
Embrace the complexity. Embrace the dynamic nature of language.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to make those mistakes.
Yeah.
To experiment.
Right. Like have fun with it.
Have fun with it. Explore those different ways of communicating. And remember,
Yeah.
it's not just about memorizing the rules.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with people, cultures.
The human experience.
Yes, exactly. In new and meaningful ways.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
So to everyone listening out there, keep those conversations going.
Yes.
Keep asking those questions.
Be curious.
Stay curious, and we will see you next time.
Bye.